All right, well, let's call the meeting to order. And Amanda, do you want to do a roll call?
Yes, absolutely. And just a reminder for our board members, if you could just please state your full name and where you are participating from, just city or county and state, and that you're participating remotely this morning. Mr. Baldwin?
Here, Grand Rapids, Michigan, remotely.
Great. Mr. Beal?
Yeah, Sean Beal, Grand Rapids, Michigan, participating remotely.
Mayor Bliss?
Russell Bliss here in the city of Grand Rapids, Michigan, participating remotely.
Ms. Bootson?
Here.
And could you just tell us where you're participating from remotely this morning?
I am participating from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Great, thank you. Ms. Deering?
Deidre Deering here, participating remotely from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Ms. Dunn?
Okay, I'm done participating remotely, Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Ms. Geetson? Mr. Carl Kelly? Mr. Roy? Mr. Talon?
Jim Talon, participating remotely from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
And Mr. Wynn? I thought he was on. Maybe he is yet to join us, but
yeah, I don't see him yet. But
we still have quorum, so.
Okay, well, we'll get started. Thank you, everyone, for coming this morning and participating virtually. It'd be great to be back in person at some point. I look forward to that, seeing you all in person, but we appreciate the ability to meet. Virtually. So the first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from February 10. I know they were sent out with the packet. I hope you've had a chance to review them. That was a good meeting. So do I have, can I get a motion on the minutes, please?
Talon moves approval.
Thank you.
Baldwin seconds.
All right, thank you. Is there any discussion about the minutes or any clarifications that anyone wanted to make?
Mr. Chair, I have a comment to make.
Yes.
On the second page, kind of towards the middle, it refers to Mr. Deering, and okay. I just want to see that change to Miss.
I will do that. Sorry for that.
That's okay.
Thank you for that clarification. We'll make that correction. Any other questions or clarifications on the minutes?
Sorry, I'm late, by the way. This is Rick Wynn.
Hey, welcome, Rick. We're glad you're here.
The coffee machine was out of water.
Uh-oh, that's not good.
I know, right?
So we're looking at the minutes. I don't know if you heard, we do have a motion in support with one correction, a minor correction in the minutes.
Well, I don't think it's minor to Deidre.
Well, I'm sorry. We certainly know that she's a myth, so I have to correct. All right. Well, I think the way we do this, right, is I ask for a, because we're remote, I will ask if anyone to vote, but we don't vote verbally, right? We just vote if we're going to abstain or dissent. Is that correct, Amanda?
Correct.
Okay. So I'll call for a vote. Please let us know if there are any abstentions first. Or is anyone dissenting from the motion? Okay, then hearing none, the motion is carried. The minutes are passed. Thank you. So the next item on our agenda is really the meat of this meeting, and it's the river governance recommendations. And Andy, are you on to present this?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, please go ahead.
Great. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, leading off here with a little bit of a bureaucratic item, but important nonetheless. I think many of you know for the past year and a half or so, DDRI has been convening a process and really a variety of community conversations in a lot of different forums to explore and ultimately recommend a governance strategy for implementing the community's vision for the Grand River Corridor. As you all know, we have a number of plans dating back to Green Grand Rapids, the Grand Rapids Whitewater Plan, certainly GR Forward, and more recently the River for All Plan. A lot of plans and big ideas for transforming that corridor from a gray, industrialized, sort of isolated channel into a more active and vibrant greenway and asset for our community. The question we were asked to sort of wrestle with in this process was, how do we execute? how do we organize and build up our community capacity to really translate that vision into reality? So we've been leading that conversation out for the past several months with support from the DDA and the Monroe North TIFA. We've had Kathy Blaha, some of you might remember her being in town and making some presentations on the best practices we've learned from other communities. She's presented some preliminary recommendations, and we've also shared those out more broadly with the community over the past several months. And really what we wanted to do today was bring those recommendations forward, ask for your endorsement, which really would then translate into us taking the next steps into some implementation. So I will just add, before I kind of jump into what those recommendations are, the DGRI Board of Advisors endorsed the approach here a week or two ago. I can't believe it's already March. And the DDA earlier this morning also endorsed it. So asking for your endorsement today, a little bit of funding to keep the process moving. And then we'll also be going out from here to other river partners to seek those endorsements as well. So what's the recommendation? Generally, we're proposing a two-pronged approach here with a governance model. And one is to establish a new nonprofit entity that really serves as the backbone agency or the quarterback that really has the mission of cultivating the collaboration and the coordination to implement the community's vision. There's a lot of interest in stakeholders in the corridor. There's a lot of projects underway, and really being that common wheel, that quarterback that puts the table together to keep everybody open with communications in a collaborative position and really facilitating joint effort to execute. In the near term, that nonprofit would really focus on some basic organizing efforts, identifying partnership opportunities. There's a lot of capital planning to do on the edges, on the land-based side of stuff. Grand Rapids Whitewater has done a lot of good work in the channel. We're primarily talking about the edges when we think about capital planning and things like that. And really that nonprofit focusing on making sure we've got a strong plan to advance an equitable, inclusive approach to revitalization. So that's the first prong of the two-pronged approach, the nonprofit. The second prong here on a parallel track is establishing a recreational authority, which is a unique tool that we have in the state of Michigan to really promote collaboration, particularly among local governments around delivering recreational services. So our thought is that recreational authority really serves as a platform for regional coordination, importantly, public-private partnership, and also importantly, that recreational authority also creates some really useful flexibility for us to access multiple funding sources, both in the near term for capital projects and actually building things, but also potentially in the long term as we look to some sustainable funding sources. The authority also would help strike a balance between this idea of an independent governance body, but also having some public accountability with respect to the leadership of this governance model, engagement efforts, funding, and ultimately the management of public facilities. And I think, while they're not exactly the same, I think we can think of this authority in some ways as the DDA being an authority that manages downtown, the CAA being an authority that manages unique facilities, specific authorities with specific missions doing specific things for the public good. The recommendation also is that this governance model should remain flexible, particularly in these initial startup years. As we start to get organized around real projects, we understand roles and responsibility and what work needs to be done and who's doing what. We really want to make sure that we're striking a flexible posture with this leadership structure so that it can evolve as we learn and advance on projects and really understand how we're working together to get that stuff done. But the ultimate goal here is to really develop the partnerships and the proficiency and the capacity to coordinate the long-term leadership needs in the corridor. So I also just want to specifically highlight that this is really focused on the public assets in the corridor. We did have some conversation with the committee through this process about what do we have the authority to govern, because there's a lot of different stakeholders, interests, property owners, and things like that. This really is focused on the public capital assets associated with river corridor revitalization. So long-term management needs, sustainability needs of the in-channel improvements, as well as the stuff on the edges, the parks and the trails, or more recently, the term emerging is the green ribbon along the edges in downtown. So that's really the focus of this governance approach. So with your endorsement today, we'll get started on some of the near-term next steps, incorporating the new nonprofits, starting to advance. We've done some preliminary work around mission and vision and purpose and things like that, but we also want to keep that a little bit of an open conversation while we seat some additional leadership around a founding board. But we'll get to work on finalizing that stuff. Additionally, recruiting some additional board leadership, and really focusing on developing that business plan that helps us understand what we're going to do over the next 6 to 12 months. DGRI has been asked to continue to serve as a bit of an incubation body here, and we're open to playing that role, particularly utilizing some of the resources from the DDA and perhaps the Monroe North TIFA to continue advancing on that work. We'll also get started on some of the outward-facing work. There's been a consistent voice to ramp up community inclusion, making sure we have good community voice around the table. So we'll probably expand our capacity to do that a little bit. We'll start thinking about an equity framework to define what we mean by equity and inclusion and the work to be done in the corridor. And we'll also start thinking about a corridor connections plan we've never really thought of. We've done a lot of plans in the urban core, but we're really looking at an area from Riverside Park to Millennium Park to link those two assets, and doing some additional planning to understand those connections, partnership opportunities beyond downtown has emerged as an important priority as well. So we'll get started on that work with your endorsement today, and of course the DDA and the DGRI before us. And just a couple of closing comments. I just want to say that these recommendations that were presented, certainly in that memo and some of the background documents, if anybody wants to dig in deeper, they really do build on a substantial amount of community conversation to date. Yeah, we've done a lot of planning over the last decade plus, but we've also had quite a bit of conversation around this governance stuff. The city has led some conversations. The county has led some conversations internally as well. And these recommendations are really building on that work and aiming to lay the foundation for some action and moving forward with a focus on the river here in the near term. I also just wanted to acknowledge that we've always had a sense of urgency around this project. We were talking about urgency when there were some serious conversations around governance about 4 or 5 years ago. I do think that urgency is still there, particularly as we see Grand Rapids Whitewater starting to get into a permitting process. Then we understand what their construction schedule is in the channel. That informs what we can do on the edges, and we're also eyeing additional infrastructure funding coming from the feds as we look to economic recovery and stimulus spending. So I think we're feeling that urgency more than ever, and we're getting in a good position to take advantage of those opportunities. But I also want to say that we have taken the time with that urgency as a priority to really have a thoughtful and inclusive conversation with a variety of partners and stakeholders in the corridor. And we will continue to ramp that up as we start to formalize this structure over the next year or so. So that, I think, concludes my remarks. Maybe just to summarize, because I threw a lot at you, the main ask here today is to ask for your endorsement of the recommendations moving forward in your memo, and then also a modest funding request that will match some DDA funding approved early this morning, really to continue to retain the services of Kathy Blaha to continue advancing on the organizational work for the new nonprofit. And I would just add one other quick thing. Representatives around this table that have been involved in that process, Deidre Deering representing the Monroe North neighborhood and businesses, and Cam Dunn representing the DDA. So we've had some representation from this body around the table as well.
Thank you, Andy. I know you said you're ready to begin a couple times with our endorsement, but I just want to acknowledge all the work that's gone up to this point. You touched on it a little bit, and just wanted to acknowledge, DGRI identified a while ago, the need for a governance structure, with the partners, and there was no clear, there's no clear to what that looked like. And so all the work that's been done, I just commend the group. It's been a heavy lift and a lot of work to come to this recommendation. And there's more work to be done, but I just wanted to thank DGRI for their efforts to date, and I guess look to this group for a motion to endorse the recommended governance model and support the staff to continue to organize it that way, and also for the funding. Let's try to do it together. I think we can do it together in one motion for the funding not to exceed $25,000 to retain Kathy Blaha's services and to support the formation of the new nonprofit, and then to finalize the benefit analysis of the corridor revitalization. This is a budgeted amount. It's in our budget, so I just wanted to note that before I ask for a motion.
Thank you.
This is Rick Wynn. I'll move approval.
This is Rosalind. I'll support.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Andy, or any questions the group wants to discuss, matters they want to bring up related to this? I'll assume no one's on mute. It's not a safe assumption with the technology, but then in calling, I'll call for a vote. So would anyone be abstaining from a vote on this motion? Okay, hearing none, then I will just ask if anyone has a dissenting vote for this motion. All right, the motion is passed. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Andy, for that report.
Thank you all.
Looking forward to the progress there. We're all excited about the river. I know we're being patient for the actual in channel and river edge work, but all agree, I think, that it's a very positive thing for our city, and look forward to the day that we can canoe and kayak in the river. So thanks. Tim, do you want to give your report now?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of quick things to highlight. One, we are in the midst of our budget process. As usual, I think most of you are aware, we do our budgeting January to March, and we'll be back with you all in April, looking for your approval and recommendation to the City Commission. So we will have another TIFA meeting in April So just, I think it's on your calendar already, but I just wanted to flag that for you. We're working with our alliances right now to build those recommendations. And of course, if any of you have thoughts or questions or things you want to make sure incorporated, please let me or the rest of the staff know. Also wanted to point out World of Winter, which is largely finished up, does still have a couple of events planned for this weekend. So if you haven't had a chance to come down and in particular see the seasonal projection show that's down at Lion Square, hopefully you can make some time to do that. We had great success. Kim gave a report out at the DDA meeting prior. Happy to share that, and we'll look to provide a report out to you all at a future meeting. Also wanted to let everyone know our social zone organizing continues. I think some of you have been on those calls. We're working closely with the businesses right now to get those set up for the spring and summer season. The City Commission yesterday did approve extension until November of 2021. So we're thankful for that and looking forward to continue to use that tool as a way to support businesses and drive activation downtown. Also thinking of spring, we're looking at our planting schedule for the hopefully April or May timeframe, but looking at tree plantings as well as getting the flowers in the pots and making sure everything looks beautiful and ready for the spring season, as we hope to welcome many more visitors downtown as vaccines roll out and hopefully the pandemic gets behind us. Lastly, just on a staffing note, I think a number of you have worked with him, but just wanted to let you all know that Chama Katavi will be leaving DGRI. He took a new position with Fair Food Fund that's out of Ann Arbor. Chama's going to be staying in Grand Rapids, so we're happy to see him stay in the community. He did a lot of great work for us over the past few years in leading our Goal 4 Alliance, also doing our retail grant, organizing things like the Business Expo. So really thankful for his work. And just wish him well going forward. So, but just wanted to acknowledge that for the TIFA membership. That is the report that I had, but I'd be happy to take any comments or questions.
All right. Any questions for Tim? Thank you, Tim. Appreciate the update. So I'll call for public comment. Do we have members of the public on the meeting for that would like to comment? All right, let's move to board member discussion. Is there any anything that the board would like to bring up to the group this morning?
Chair, I'll just say that I'm sad to hear about Chama leaving, but wish him well. You know, he'll do fantastic wherever he goes. But I wanted to just say on the record how much I've appreciated him and all of his work. Really, not just with the DDA and TIFA, but really throughout the city. So appreciate him, and I'll miss him.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Bliss. I think we all will. We echo your sentiments. Thank you. Anything else from the group before we wrap it up? All right, then the meeting is adjourned. Appreciate your time today, and we'll see you all next month.
Thanks, Sean.
See you in April. Thanks, everyone.
See you later.